Hello my friends, this is Lindy. Welcome to another Friday Reads on Lindy's Magpie Reads. It is June 6th and I had 2 book clubs in this past week, which I will tell you about the books shortly. I abandoned 1 book and finished 6. 4 of those books could fit under the hashtag Pride Month 2022, and 3 of the books would qualify for this Shadow Giller project that I've been participating in. So this is my 3rd year. What we do, there's just a small group of us, we read the books that fit within the guidelines of possibilities to be on Canada's Giller Prize list, and come up with our own long list, and then once the official long list is announced, we pick what we think should be the short list, and then before the official winner is announced, we pick which one we think should win. So it's all for fun. And so one of the other members of the Shadow Jury, Penny, she's been doing this for longer than I have, and she recently raved about No Stars in the Sky. This is a short story collection by Martha Batiz, and I thought, okay, gotta read it. There's no copy at the library, so I went down to the bookstore and purchased it, and there was a freebie happening. If you bought any of these 4 books from Anansi Press, you got a little collection of 4 short stories, 1 from each of the books. But I'm doing No Stars in the Sky as a buddy read with my friend Kathy. And after each story, we're checking in on Voxer. And the first story was kind of a dud. But the second story I liked a lot better. And actually the second story, The Raincoat, is one that's in this collection. But I'm kind of mystified of why they put the story Jason first, because the position in a collection is so important. Anyway, I'm only 2 stories in. So much more yet to come on that. So the one that I abandoned is a poetry collection, My Grief, the Sun, by Sanna Wani. She is a Kashmiri Canadian writer. And how far did I get in? 22 pages. And I just could not feel any connection. I think I would like to hear her read her work and maybe give it a try at another time. There are Islamic references, some Urdu, but that's not what's preventing me, I think, from connecting. It's more, I don't know, I just feel sort of mystified. So no poetry this past week, but I have started Rita Dove's playlist for the apocalypse, and I'm loving it so far. So next week I will tell you about this one. Oh, this one is poetry too. So I did do a poetry, but this one is in graphic novel format. You might remember that a while back I read a collection, it was called Embodied, an intersectional comics poetry anthology, something like that. I'll put the notes down below. And there were a couple of poems in there with the artwork that I liked. It was different writers and different artists for each piece. But overall, I did not care for the collection. This one I loved. So the problem is not that graphic illustration does not go with poetry, because This one's fantastic. Both parts are very strong. You can see Jason Griffin's artwork. This book is called Ain't Burned All the Bright, and Jason Reynolds wrote 3 sentences, and Jason Griffin did all of the artwork. And, it's about 300 pages long. It's very striking and also quite moving. I cried when I got to this part. This is not the part, but I just thought I'd show more of the illustrations. This is set during COVID-19 or any pandemic. It's actually not specific. Still looking for that part. Out a birthday candle. It just struck me how hard it's been to not be able to celebrate with friends and family, and even when we gather with an airborne virus blowing is not safe. So, Ain't Burned All the Bright, that is an all ages collection, and I loved it. Jason Reynolds is African American, Jason Griffin is white, and they collaborated on a book, quite a while back. It was Reynolds' poetry, illustrated by Jason Griffin. So the total effect is quite different. That earlier book is called My Name is Jason, Mine Too. But they are good collaborators for sure. So I listened to a couple of audiobooks, and the first one I almost bailed on. That was the one that is on the Women's Prize for Fiction. Sorrow and Bliss by Meg Mason. I was thinking it's okay, but, you know, I wasn't entirely wrapped up in it. I just kept telling myself, well, I really like the narrator. The audiobook is read by Emilia Fox, so I'll just give it more time. Maybe I'll give it a little more time. Anyway, I was about 4 hours into an 11-hour audiobook when I got stung by a yellowjacket twice on my arm. And I am allergic to all Hymenoptera, bees, wasps, yellowjackets, hornets. I've had desensitization shots, so I should be good for 3 stings. And like I said, I got 2. Hurts like hell. I took a Benadryl right away, and I fell asleep listening to Sorrow and Bliss. And my phone battery died while I was sleeping, so there was about 3 hours of the audiobook that I missed entirely. And when I woke up and recharged my phone, I thought, I think I'll just start listening from here. So I listened to the final 4 hours, and I loved it. You didn't need that middle part at all. So feel free, skip through. We can do what we like, right? Anyway, yeah, I ended up really quite liking the character development and what Meg Mason, who is a New Zealand-born British writer, anyway, I liked what she had to say about mental illness and living your life with that sort of challenge. Very well done. The other audiobook that I listened to is one that is eligible for Canada's Giller Prize. It's called Mansions of the Moon, and it's by Shyam Selvadurai, who is a gay Sri Lankan Canadian writer. There isn't very much gay content in this historical novel. It is set way back in time in India, and it reimagines the life of Siddhartha Gautama, the Buddha, but a lot of it is from the viewpoint of his wife, Yasodhara. And I found it very rich. I loved the setting. I loved the religious exploration. There's a little bit of that, but mainly the questioning about, what it would be like for Yasodhara to have her husband desert her and her infant son for 10 years, no word from him, and what she would do. And yeah, it's excellent. I really, really liked it. So if you're a historical fiction fan, I definitely say give this a try. There have been a couple of other novels that I have read about the life of the Buddha, Hermann Hesse's Siddhartha, and Osamu Tezuka's multi-volume series. It's called The Buddha. I think the first one is Kapilavastu, something like that. The birthplace of Siddhartha, where he was his prince, his father was a Raja. Anyway, yeah, I recommend that. There were 2 audiobook narrators, Ali Kazmi and Elora Patnaik, and they also added to the feel with the Indic language use, and it's good. I read 1 nonfiction in the past week, and this was for my Lesbian Plus book club. It's called Ace by Angela Chen. The subtitle is What Asexuality Reveals About Desire, Society, and the Meaning of Sex. So in my Lesbian Plus book club, we do have 1 ACE member and another member who has a daughter who is ACE. So that was added a lot of interest to our discussion, I think. There were so many things that I was kind of surprised by in this book, just really interested in. I mean, there's a lot of vocabulary some of it was new to me, some I'd heard but didn't really have a grasp of, like aromantic, demisexual, gray A, allosexual, that sort of thing, queer, platonic, yeah. So some of the things that really made me think are in the chapter where she talks about disability and how people with disabilities are assumed to be asexual, and for most other people in society, it's considered that in Western society anyway, that if you don't want to have sex, then you're either sick or dead or dying. Yeah, so it's the whole negative effect of society that Angela Chen is exploring. There are other harmful things that she compares this focus on sex to, like the pressure for women to wear high heels, the pressure for boys to not cry. Yeah. Anyway, a really thorough exploration of this topic and how having language can help us to have better discussions about intimacy and those sorts of relationships. Yeah. Oh, one more thing. She has a passage about the ubiquity of romantic plot lines in books, in novels. And so for those people who want to avoid romantic plot lines, and I have to say, I'm not asexual, but I just don't care for romantic plot lines. And I agree, they are ubiquitous. There has to be a lot else going on in a novel to interest me so that it doesn't matter about the romance in it. So this is Angela Chen's criteria. She's looking for the novel is not young adult fiction or science fiction or fantasy. The novel is not about romance, and romance or yearning for romance isn't a major plot line, even if it's there. Maybe there's a couple, but their relationship is taken for granted, and the book doesn't focus on its evolution. Maybe someone goes on a date, but dating doesn't move the story forward. The novel has no explicit sex scenes or sexual themes, including sexual assault. The novel doesn't present romantic love as necessary and central to flourishing. This last requirement is crucial. Even if there are no sex scenes and nobody goes on a date, if the main character is constantly thinking about how they should be dating, the novel is disqualified. Go ahead, see what you can come up with. She does have some suggestions, but I'm going to leave it with you to see if you can come up with any. Please put them down in the comments. I immediately thought of my favorite book that I read last week, which is Companion Piece by Ali Smith. Definitely fits all of those criteria. Just saying. Next up, a collection of short stories by Helen Chau Bradley. It is called Personal Attention Roleplay. Helen Chau Bradley uses they, them pronouns. They're queer, living in Montreal and of Asian descent. The title story is about a particular kind of ASMR video, and when I first started doing BookTube, I had to look up what ASMR is because I had people commenting that some of my videos, they had an ASMR quality. In this book, I had to look up what ACAB stands for. One of the characters has got that tattooed across her knuckles. Yes, reading, learning all the time. I cannot pick a favorite in this collection. They are all strong stories. They're about intimacy. Some of the characters are quite young. Many of them are Asian or queer or both. One of the stories, the final story, that's called Soft Shoulder, is about a group of punk musicians on the road, and their sorority is really strong. There's an element in that story that normally I do not care for in fiction. I'm not going to say what it is because that would be a spoiler. But it worked in this story. So I will never say never. I just finished saying that I don't like romance in my reading. Sometimes it's okay. And in the case of this story, it's something that I normally don't like, and it was okay. It was more than okay. I love the story. There are elements that reminded me of Vivek Shraya's The Subtweet. The way that there are trans characters whose trans identity is just so subtle. It's just one aspect of who they are. And I also was reminded of Cheng Thom's Fierce Femmes and Notorious Liars, partly from the Montreal setting and partly from the way that there are queer characters who band together and help each other. There's 2 more titles for you if you're not familiar with those books. I recommend them both. And this one. And last of all, my favorite book of the week, When We Lost Our Heads by Heather O'Neill. So this one, I purchased it right when it came out. I started reading it in early March, and I got about 50 pages in and realized I was not in the right mood for it. And it's really hard to pick it up again, once you've set it aside. So I, heard people talking about how great it is. So I suggested that my feminist book club read it, and then that was the impetus. I needed to pick it up again, and I just tore through it and adored it, and so did the other members of my feminist book club. It is set in 19th century Montreal, but there are a lot of aspects that mirror the French Revolution. Female characters who are echo the members of the French Revolution, male members of the French Revolution. Like, for example, there is a woman who runs a pharmacy, the Marat Pharmacy, Jeanne-Pauline Marat, who's an important minor character, if we can use that. And she dispenses the good stuff, like she had a series of miniature bottles that were meant to treat the spiritual condition of being a baby. Or, put more simply, to make the baby stop crying. They were filled with cocaine and gin and that type of thing. So that gives you a sense of the dark playfulness of Heather O'Neill's writing. She has so many similes. Normally, I do not like a lot of similes. I really like Heather O'Neill's because her comparisons are so surprising. They're just delightful, and there is a fairy tale-like element to this story. There's lesbian erotica, there's feminist workers' rights, all of which kind of reminded me of Sarah Waters' Tipping the Velvet. Definitely a lot of revolution and change going on. So the 2 main characters at the center of this, Marie Antoine, and Sadie Arnett, show how passionate girls can be. They're 12 years old, I think, at the start of this. And also how cruel little girls can be. If any of that piques your interest, pick this up and let me know what you think. If you've already read it, I'd love to hear what you've got to say. So that's it for this week's Friday Reads. I've got a few little quick short videos from my garden, including the apple tree that has a soundtrack of ravens calling. There are a couple of ravens that are nesting in, not the apple tree, a big spruce tree on the other side of the house, but they're around. So thank you so much for watching. Look forward to your comments, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye.